Hello, good morning. How is everyone today? I hope we are live. If we are, please do say hello so that I know you are watching and I'm not just talking to myself in an empty room. It'd be lovely to see some of your familiar faces and some newbies too. We've had a few new people sign up. If you are watching on the replay, then don't forget to say hello too, because it's always nice to read back through the comments, and I think you'll get more out of these kind of things if you interact just as if you were watching it live. So please do say hello and please do comment in the comments section so I know you're watching, and please do ask any questions because I will go back and look at the comments later on today. So please do say hello. I'm just going to wait to see if I can find myself and see if anyone else is going to hop on. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing well. It's a little bit of a drizzly morning in Bristol here, so yes, I can see myself there. It's always really weird to see yourself on camera. Good morning, Nicola. Your hair looks fabulous. Oh my goodness, my hair is like a continuous battle. I have straightened it 3 times this morning because it's so curly. If I get a hint of moisture in the air or if I get a little bit hot, it just frizzes up like a poodle. So by the end of today, by the end of this hour or so, it will be very different. It's a constant battle. I don't know if anyone else has got curly hair, but yeah, it's not easy. Who's excited to talk about pencils? I know that I am. It's my absolute favourite subject in the whole world. I'm not a big talker normally, but pencils get me onto that subject and I could talk for hours and hours and hours. Hopefully I won't. I don't want to take up too much of your precious time, but there is quite a lot to get through. Please do say good morning if you are hopping on. Good morning, Mark. How are you? Good morning, Alexandra. Lovely to see you. Did I say good morning, Nicola, or did I just read your comment? Lovely to have you, Nicola. So, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Sam Clift and I'm an art and mindset tutor. For those that do know me, lovely to see you again. And for those of you that have been on these workshops, I think this is my 3rd one now, my 3rd kind of big one. I did a little trial run just before Christmas. But yeah, this is my 3rd one now. And so how amazing is it that, you know, there's so much to talk about with pencils. There's always something to learn. There's always something new. There's always a new product coming out on the market. So I think I could keep going forever with these workshops. I can never get tired of pencils. Good morning, Roger. Lovely to see you. Good morning, Linda. Karen, lovely to have you here. Thank you for jumping on with me live. I know your days are precious. Some of you are at work, so I know that you're doing work and you're sneakily watching, which is just lovely. I think it's just fantastic to have you here. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If I do disappear, because Facebook can be a little bit like that, then I will be doing my best behind the scenes to jump on again. So please don't go anywhere. I will be back. It just might take a couple of minutes. The other thing is I'm running a competition with this workshop, as I usually do, because I think that's exciting to get people interacting and to really make the most out of this. So for the first prize, I'm going to be giving away a month free in my membership, the Discovering the Artist Within You Art and Mindset membership. So that's first prize, and second prize is actually going to be giving away some of the things that I'm going to be showing you today. This is I think it's my all-rounder favourite paper, and I think I'm going to be talking about this a little bit more because actually it's just so fantastically versatile, and I'm going to be using it on 3 of the drawings that I'm doing over these 2 days. So if you're looking at starting out and you don't know which paper to, because wow, there are so many, hundreds really if you look into it. I've tried quite a few over the years and I've always come back to this one and I will always recommend it to people. It's the Daler Rowney and it's just a brilliant all-rounder. And then I'm going to be giving away a Faber-Castell kneadable eraser, which we are going to be demonstrating in a second, and also can't live without the Tombow Mono eraser. This one is my kind of old trusty one that I keep getting refills, is a black, but it is a little round one. You can get them in more of a rectangle shape, which are good for little lines, but I don't get on with them as well because I think I'm just used to this one. And so I'm going to be giving away one of those as well. So what do you need to do to enter the competition? Please like or love, why like when you can love, the video here and the one tomorrow, so it has to be both of them. So like or love. Please comment, ask lots of questions, and please comment, because the algorithm in Facebook, it pushes it out to more people in the group if more people comment and more people interact. It's really weird that actually within the group, not many people are going to be seeing this. It's not going to show up in their feed. So the more comments I get, the more likes and loves I get, the more people are going to be seeing it, which is really what we want to do, share it with everybody. So like or love, please comment on both videos. And also I'm going to be sending out a little worksheet later on today. I'm going to be going over, kind of highlighting what we've done today, just so that you've got it there in writing, and also my top tips about different pencils and things like that. Maybe there might be something for you to do. So the third thing is either to take a picture of your little worksheet with your filled in sections, or if you're going to be drawing along with me, then I would love to see your work. No judgment at all. This group, I've really worked hard to make sure that it's a positive, uplifting, you know, nothing but positive. It's all about encouragement. I don't want, you know, any nasty comment. It just won't be tolerated in this group. You will just be kind of, you know, said goodbye to nicely. But I just not going to, that's not the kind of group I want. I want it to be really positive and really a safe place for you to be able to show your work, because I know how nerve-wracking it is. Believe me, you know, the first few times of uploading your work, the times I've deleted it again because I thought, oh no, I don't want anyone to see it. It's nerve-wracking. I do understand, and I have been there. But I think you will find with the positivity in the group that you will be given a boost. You know, there will be nothing negative about it. Morning, Jess, my little sister's on. Hello, Jess. Looking, oh, thanks. Thank you so much. Margaret, good morning, Margaret. Lovely to have you. Good morning, Lisa. Said good morning to everybody. Karen, good morning. The messages are just kind of flying off now. I hope you're all doing well. How are you doing? Where are you all today? It would be really lovely to know. I'm based in Bristol, in Warmley, near Warmley. Where are you all from today? Are we all in the UK, or are we in different places? It would be lovely to know. So please type that into the comments, because it's always nice to be... oh, I've just had a message from Carol. Are you live? Not happening my end. Yes, sometimes it doesn't show up immediately. Let me just answer her. So I don't know why it doesn't. There's a bit of a delay sometimes. But hopefully you can all see me and I haven't crashed or anything. So please do say good morning if you're jumping on. Right, let's get into it. Let's get into talking about my favourite subject. Good morning, Pam. Drizzly Aylesbury. Drizzly, I know what's going on with the weather at the moment. There are some really bright hot spells, but then you just get a downpour and you don't know what to wear. Hang on, I'll just get rid of this message again. Hopefully people can connect. People are having a few issues. Good morning, Shirley in Chester. Wow. Chester, Shirley. How lovely. Oh, Hampshire. Joy. Good morning, Joy. Good morning, Francis. Hello from Banbury. There's a lady on a white horse. Oh, I love that. Good morning, Eileen. Good morning, Catherine from Northumberland. Gosh, we're from all over the place. How exciting. Loving your hair. Thank you, Caroline. It won't be like this in an hour, so I'm trying to keep still and not get too hot. Right, so, oh, from Shropshire too. Good morning, Vicky. Harrogate. Oh, I'd love to go to Yorkshire. I've always loved James Herriot, and I wanted to be a vet when I was growing up. And I just am drawn to Yorkshire for some reason. I just think it's the most beautiful scenery, and I think I want to, you know, live a little bit of James Herriot. A bit gloomy today. Yeah, it's a bit gloomy everywhere, isn't it? What's going on? Have we had our summer already? I hope not. North Yorkshire coast. Oh, lovely. Beautiful. I hope you're all doing really well. Yes, we're just going to have some fun today. No pressure at all. I think, you know, I personally am quite bad at this. I put an awful lot of pressure on myself, and I know as artists we are quite sensitive. We're quite hard on ourselves, and today is going to be all about, you know, let's have a little bit of fun and let's not worry about it. The hummingbird workshop that I did last time, I think a few of you, not everybody, but a few of you found it quite frustrating with the wings, which I get. I mean, that's part of learning something new, definitely. But I think we're just going to completely take the pressure off today, and it's going to be about having some fun with these amazing... Hey, Carol, you found me. Happy days. Brilliant. Jill, good morning. Good morning to everybody. Lovely to see you all. So nice to have you all watching with me. So, to start with, we're going to talk about graphite pencils, and I think they get a bit overlooked because they're black and white. Maybe people prefer colour, which I definitely understand, but I think sometimes we can jump into something and possibly not think about the basics of what the skills that we need to then we can take forward and incorporate into the next stage. And I don't know about you guys, let me know if you if this was you as well, but when I was growing up, as with a lot of stories from artists, you start drawing from a very young age, and you start maybe I used to copy the Disney DVDs and try and get them as accurate and as lifelike as possible. Now, back in the day, in the 80s, when I was born, 1980, they were just very much line drawings, and it was block colour, and they were relatively straightforward to copy. Nowadays, it's all computer work, so they're really difficult to get that 3D look. So back in the day, that's what I used to do, and I always used to do it with graphite. Maybe I would colour in with some felt tip pens, or I had some little Crayola crayons. But actually, I think having that basis of graphite was really helpful going forward with my art journey, so that when I found coloured pencils about 5 years ago, it seemed like a bit of a natural progression. So this is why I started off with graphite, because I do think that sometimes if you're feeling a little bit frustrated, it can be quite helpful to go, not backwards, I don't really see it as backwards, but maybe back to basics and take a deep breath and start to think, right, okay, let's have a look and see how these pencils work. It's about, you know, holding the pencils. I've had a lot of questions about how you hold it. Something I've completely taken for granted because I have been drawing for such a long time. So and actually I do probably hold it quite weird. I hold it differently depending on what I'm doing, how to hold it, the pressure that we need to apply when we're putting pencil down, and that's really important because actually I'm naturally heavy-handed, a lot of people are, and that can kind of go against you a little bit when it comes to coloured pencils especially. So if you can learn and practice with graphite, which are cheaper and a little bit easier to control, you don't have to worry about getting the colours right. So you've taken that whole aspect away, the whole colour part, and actually you can just concentrate on what the pencils can do. Blending, creating values, you know, getting your darks as dark as they need to be, your lights, your highlights, creating form, getting that kind of 3D look. So, Lake District, oh, good morning, Jennifer. Lake District, reception not good. Oh no. Yeah, technical issues are always a little bit of an issue, but I really hope that I don't disappear. So yes, back to basics. Yorkshire Girl in Bucks. Oh, good morning, Hilary. Lovely to have you here, everybody. So going a little bit back to basics and then introducing the accessories that we can use with the other pencils with the graphite and just see how they work. So I'm going to show you what I use with my graphite work before we start the demonstration. And I wonder how many of you have got your line art ready. Are you going to be drawing along with me, or are you going to just be watching me ramble on? Hopefully I'm going to be giving you lots of information, not too much to bombard you, but a lot of information that you can then take forward and kind of find out at your leisure. So first of all, I've touched on this already, the paper I'm going to be using. I use this for 3 of the drawings. It's great for graphite, it's great for coloured pencils, and it's also, it takes water too, or it takes ink. So if you like ink and watercolour, if you like just watercolours, and I am going to be demonstrating watercolour pencils as well, it takes the water pretty well. It does buckle slightly, but not enough that it doesn't flatten again once the water's dry. And you can always tape it down to your desk if you find that a little bit of an issue. But I think as an overall great, versatile, inexpensive paper to really practice on a good quality, because I think sometimes I can completely understand this. You might start off with like a very thin computer paper, or maybe just having a sketch pad that you have already got, and I do get that, but there is going to be a time when your tools are going to start to frustrate you and start to work against you a little bit. And so if you love to draw and that you think that you might be doing this quite regularly, then I would recommend buying this pad. I think this is about £10-ish, and you get 25 sheets. You can get A4, you can get A3, and it's £135 or 220 GM squared. Pretty good, pretty thick, so definitely recommend this paper, and that's what we're going to be using today. I've touched on the Tombow Monos. These are just as important as the pencils actually, because you're going to be lifting up just as much as you're putting down. It's all to do with kind of getting the graphite down and then pulling back up the highlights and then blending. It's just the way that kind of I've done it. It's not the only way, but it's the way that I've worked out that works for me, and it makes me feel like I've got enough control, and it also makes it feel like it's a little bit of a technique that I can trust. If something's going a little bit awry, then I just have faith in the method that I'm using, I suppose, because I know that I'm going to pull through at the end of it. So Tombow Monos, and we will be showing those. This I've had for years. It's the Derwent Electric. Press the button and it rotates really quickly. It's fantastic at pulling up, you know, lots of graphite or coloured pencils all at the same time. So it takes it right back to the paper. You can just dab it on. It's good for like a little highlight in the eye actually, if you need to pull up some pigment, and I use it for cleaning up around the edges after I've drawn. Probably not going to be using this as much today, but we will give it a little go. It's the slice tool. It's something that I just don't know what I did before I had it, mainly in my coloured pencil work, but it does work in graphite a little bit, and it's worth having because it's great for texture. But what I use this mainly for is hair or fur, so pulling up the highlights, pulling up the flyaway hairs that add to the detail and add to the overall look of the drawing, so that's really good. Pencil sharpeners, keep going back to this one. I've also got my crankshaft one, which is my swordfish curve. I'd say it's pretty good to begin with. It's amazing, like all pencil sharpeners are. They work brilliantly for the first few weeks, and then they tend to blunt a little bit, and then they get frustrating. Great for the first few weeks. It does tend to eat my pencils a little bit, depends on the pencil, but sometimes you put it in, you're turning away, and you can just see it disappearing, and it just makes you want to cry. The great thing is that it catches your sharpenings, which is always good, but the inside is going to be a little bit more expensive to replace. Obviously you can replace the blades, but it's more of a mechanism, so it's going to be slightly more expensive. I do keep going back to this M&R. It's really heavy, good quality. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it quite a few different places. It's double, so you've got a really, really wide one, and then you've got a smaller one. So you can get your luminance pencils in, and also your normal graphite and your other coloured pencils in. The only thing I would say is that on the thinner side, I don't know if you can see, the blade here is exposed, the point, and I've cut my finger on it a couple of times, so that's just something to watch. You've got to really be careful about how you hold it, but the blades are cheap as chips to replace. You can just buy a little pack that I got off Amazon for something ridiculous like £3.50, and there's 10 in there, and that's going to last me a year. So I would recommend this. I could probably find the links and put them in the comments later on. You're drawing with me, Carol. How lovely. Good morning, Jules. Lovely to have you. Nice to see some friendly faces here today. Some familiar faces, I should say. You're all friendly. I'm not saying that the newbies aren't friendly, of course you are. Some familiar faces, and lovely to see some new faces too. So yes, I would definitely recommend that. And then going forward, these aren't cheap, but this was a Christmas present from my husband, and it's a pencil plane. And I've got to say, it's quite a lot of fun. Got to be a bit careful, but this is great for pastel pencils, which are notoriously difficult to sharpen. Good morning, Elizabeth, lovely to see you. These are about £70, I think, so it's not cheap at all, but it comes with about 10 blades. It's just beautifully made, and just admiring the craftsmanship of it, really. It's just lovely to have on my desk. So it's almost like a little, what do you call it, sculpture or something just lovely to have on your desk. And I don't think you can put a price on the joy that it gives you, and it's brilliantly practical too. So if you are looking for something special, of course you can do the same-ish. I can't, because I'm clumsy and I know I will cut my finger off. With this, it's just for safety. For me, you can use a craft knife and just do it yourself, but this just takes away all of the danger for me. Okay, moving on to the pencils we're going to be using. These are my absolute favourite, the Derwent Graphic Sketching. You can see I've had these a long time, and actually, look at, I mean, the pencils, I don't even know where the original ones are now. I've got a little bit of a mixture in them. These are the originals. So I've used them for years. They've lasted a long time. So then I upgraded, because I thought it was about time, to these ones, which I thought were the same, but actually they feel quite different. But I am going to be using them today. I don't like them as much. They are light. They feel a bit more charcoaly to me. They feel a bit not so substantial, I suppose, in my hand. I think there is a lot to be said about how it feels when you're holding pencils as to whether you're going to like them or not. So that's what we're going to be using today. And I think we might crack on with the drawing. Otherwise, I'm going to be here all day. Does anybody have any questions about the materials that I'm using, or anything they would like to know? Please don't hesitate to ask. I'm just going to refresh and we will crack on with the drawing. So I don't want to get too close to frighten you, but let's flip the screen. And I think I'll get a little bit closer. What we're aiming for, this is the one that I did a little while ago, and we are going to be aiming to do just a little bit of this today if we can, and really just demonstrating the techniques for you to show you how to blend well, what little techniques you can use to get the graphite down. Let me bring up my Apple. Comments aren't actually showing on my phone at all, which is a real shame. So I might have to keep ducking in and out of my reference photo. And let's have a look to see. I've lost the black and white one. I do need it in black and white. So you can do this with any photo, really. If you turn it to monochrome or black and white, then it's a good way to just think about values and not worry too much about the colour. So to begin with, I generally start with an HB, but I didn't write that in the workbook. So I'm going to just use the pencils that I said, and I'm going to start with a mid colour. And I'm just going to be using the blacks. So B stands for black, H stands for hard. And so the higher up the number it goes, the darker the pencil is going to be, the more kind of graphite you're going to lay down. So what I've done is draw it out really, what's the word? Dark for you to see. And I'm going to use my Tombow Mono, no, not my Tombow, I always say that, my kneadable eraser to just lift it up, because although I am going to be working in graphite and I can probably blend some of this pencil away, it's a little bit too dark. I just wanted for it to show up for the camera so that you can see. So you can see how amazing this is. It's just brilliant. Don't confuse it with blue tack, whatever you do. It's not the same thing. If you've got blue tack close at hand, this is darker, and it's not got that oily residue that blue tack has, and you don't want that all over your work, really. So I'm going to go in with the B to begin with, and I'm going to start on the left hand side, and what I'm going to do is start to just add a little bit of graphite in, and I'm using the side of my pencil, and I'm using a light hand, And I'm actually using kind of circular motion. You don't have to worry too much at this stage because actually we are going to be blending a lot of it out. I've put the highlights in, the brightest highlights, so I'm not going to put any graphite in here, and I'm not going to be darkening up too much. It's just that first initial layer. And then what I tend to do is use the graphite that I've laid down, and I can smudge that. It's not a very good technical term, is it? I'm going to blend that. So you can see, because I've added the pencil in quite dark, I've embossed the paper, which is going to show up a little bit too much, but that's fine just for this demonstration today. So I think for you guys, just bear that in mind. Don't make your initial sketch too dark or press too hard. So a light hand is really good to practice, and that's why I think starting with graphite is a good idea, because we're just practicing all of the techniques that you can lay the pencil down with. So I'm just putting it over all of the areas because there aren't many that are actually really light. And don't forget, we are going to be using our other tools to be lifting the pencil back up again. So this left-hand side is a lot darker than the right-hand side, but I'm just going to go in with the B to begin with, because we can always darken things up again. There is a highlight on this side, but it's still darker than the left-hand side. So I'm going to put it all over. And what I tend to do is just leave out any areas that have got a lot of detail in, because at this point, I think it would overwhelm me to start working up into this section because there's a lot going on up there. So what I tend to do is follow the path of least resistance. I think I'm starting to notice a bit of a pattern with my work. I tend to go onto the section that I know that I have confidence in doing, and I will leave the bits that I'm not quite sure how I'm going to tackle until I'm a bit further into the drawing, because you'll find that the further you get in, the more muscle memory you'll start to build up, the more confidence you'll start to be building, because you're starting to see it taking shape. And then once you've got certain areas in, I'm just going to add a little bit up here, then you know how dark you need to go. You're working out maybe which pencils work well together, and it all starts to fall into place. We've got that really rough first layer down, and this is the fun part. This is why I love graphite pencils. So you can either use something like a cotton bud if you've got them hanging around the house, and these are good for something like this, the first layer that you've got down, and just demonstrate how that works. So again, circles. We don't want the stop and start lines because the apple is actually quite smooth. It's a little bit textured, but generally the look of it's smooth, as in it's not hairy or furry. So I'm using circular motion again to blend that pencil, and I can smudge a bit into the edges of the highlights. We don't want them to be too square looking, and it's just a really good way to blend. You can also use, if you've got quite a big surface area, I've always got a box of tissues handy, you can wrap a tissue around your finger and use that to blend, and that's quite good for a big surface area as well, like this. So again, using circular, look how easy that is to just blend that pencil. Now what you'll find is with the more detailed sections, see that blends it really quickly, you might need a little bit more of a precise implement, I suppose. And so this is when the tortillon or the blending stump comes in. This one's pretty dirty. You can see I've got quite a lot of graphite on the end, which isn't ideal, but that's fine. You're going to be putting some of that graphite down. And again, I use really big circles, like more like sausage shapes, I suppose, to blend the edges, because we want a little bit more control around the edge. Now what I'd normally do, which is what I did with the apple that I showed you at the beginning, is actually I started on the left-hand side, got that kind of 80% complete before I moved on to the next part. But for this, I think we'll just try and get as much done as we can today. Now going in with the next layer, I'm starting to think about, looking at my reference photo, where these darker parts are. And so there's a patch here that's pretty dark, so I'm starting to plot that in. There's a patch here that's pretty dark. I'm going to plot that in. There's like a diamond shape here. So I'm just going to plot that in. Just using the side of my pencil, again, quite a light hand. You can see it ends up a little bit sketchy again. This part is a bit lighter, so I'm going to leave that free because we can always blend the graphite in. And then there's a darker part here. There's a dark part here. But look how quick this is compared to coloured pencils. And I think if you're looking for a little bit of a kind of a mindfulness exercise, something that you're not going to be putting too much pressure on yourself, something that you just want to have a play, you've got a little bit of time to yourself, or you just want to draw something, then I think graphite is just brilliant because it's so portable. You can do it anywhere. It's cheap. You know, these pencils cost next to nothing to replace. Like I said, you don't have the worry about the colour and mixing colours or working out which pencils you should use. It takes away the pressure, and I think it just really highlights why we do art to begin with. Why are we doing this? And it's to make us feel good. It's the action of doing it. You know, it's a little bit of mindfulness. It's creative. It's getting that creative need that a lot of us artists, well, all of us actually all of us humans have, let's be honest. We've all got a creative side, and that comes out in lots and lots of different ways. But for me, it's always been a sketchbook. You know, whatever I've been doing, I used to work on a farm when I was younger. It was just like a city farm, just looking after the animals. And I always used to take my sketchbook and draw the animals. And it's just like a need, I suppose, like an itch you need to scratch. You just want to be able to kind of express your creativity. So what I've done is I'm still using the B, and I'm starting to map in where the darkest parts are. This right-hand side is a lot darker than the left-hand side. We've got the diamond shape in that I really like. I just want to make that a bit more obvious. That's the other part of art. You know, you do what you want to do. If you want to put some random thing in the middle of it, or highlight something that, you know, is a little bit darker in yours than it is in real life, then that's completely up to you. You can leave bits out, you can add bits in. This is your drawing, this is your artwork, and it's all about your interpretation. And you might have a vision in your head of how you want it to look, and that could be quite different to the person next to you. And I just find that fascinating. So I put another layer down. You can see I'm starting to work out where the dark parts are. I've added this shape in. This section is quite light. There's some highlighted areas that I'm going to leave. And I'm going to try and find a cleaner tortillon, or I can always sand it a little bit on my sanding block. I might try that just to get some of the colour off. Although my sanding block's quite dirty as well. What does that say? I was getting ready for the workshop this morning and I was sharpening my pastel pencils and I got so messy, and I thought, trying to be a bit clean for the workshop, but isn't that fun? I just think getting messy and messy fingers is part of it. So now I'm blending with my blending stump, my paper stump, or my tortillon, which you might find that name kind of dotted around online, and I'm starting to blend again. I'm being quite quick. I'm not worrying too much about where I'm putting it at this stage, because actually we are going to be lifting things back up again in a minute. I definitely need to sharpen the edge. There's a lot of smudging going on, but what I'm doing is mapping everything out. So if I left my drawing now and I went and made a cup of tea or did something else, you know, got distracted, I could come back and I would know where to start again. And I think that's quite important. And I think that's why I do the path that's the easiest first, because then I can work out where I'm going. Just have a sip of water. I don't usually talk so much. I'm usually sat here all on my own, talking to the cat. Right, so I'm going to go in with the 3B now, which is the next one. And I'm start to build up the shadows, and then we're going to start to lift up some highlights again. So again, going back over and looking to see where my darkest parts are and mapping them in. Now, we are using the 3B, which, just bearing in mind, it goes all the way up to 9B. This is quite a light pencil. It's darker than an H would be, because it's black, so you see you can get it quite dark. But what we don't want to do is press really hard, because what you're going to do then is flatten the tooth of the paper, and you're not going to be able to get as many layers down. And that's what this is all about, layers really. Just going to map in the top, not going to really put any detail in yet, because there's quite a lot going on up there, but I'm just mapping it in. We've got the stalk there, but you can see it's quite sketchy at the moment. It's quite a I think a lot of people get frustrated with graphite because it does look quite sketchy, but I think that's why blending is just so important. And taking your time to blend, you know, don't rush the blending. For a start, it's really fun. And secondly, I think that's why, that's more of the look that people are wanting to get, more of a smoothed look. This section's really dark, but we're just going to add a little bit of graphite, and then we're going to not worry about that until we move up through the B's, because we're not going to be able to get that as dark as it needs to go with the 3B. Adding a little bit of here, just starting to think about now we've got our base layers in, I'm starting to think a little bit more about detail and how the details are there and why they're important to create that form of the apple. What we want is it to look rounded, and to be able to do that, we need to have the shadows in the right place and the highlights in the right place. I'm going to blend again with my sanded down tortillon. And what you'll tend to find, this is what I tend to find, I wonder if you are too, is that it starts to go, because you're adding layers of graphite, it starts to go overall. So if you squint your eyes, it starts to go a little bit darker than you want it to be. And that's when you start to bring in the erasers. So you can see a line there that's formed because I pressed too hard with my initial sketch. So just bear that in mind. I'm going to put a little bit of graphite over this highlight because it's not as bright as I have it here. And then I'm going to blend away all of this just to get rid of the graininess. Take your time with this, don't rush. And you can see it starts to, if you are, because with this apple there is quite a lot of liney texture, I can actually draw with the tortillon and draw these lines in, starting to create a little bit of texture with the apple. So I don't know what I did without these blending stumps either. There's nothing else that compares to it in my book. I think they're just amazing. So starting to smooth, can you see how that's still a little bit, you can see the lines of my initial sketch, which isn't great. But I'm starting to blend away all of the graininess. And if it's not going, just press a little bit harder. Not too hard, because we don't want to flatten the tooth. Use circles for more of a uniformed, even, and then you can use the lines to draw with the tortillon as well. So can you see the overall look of that is a little bit dark, and we're going to start to have to pull up some highlights now, which I wanted to show you. So I'm going in with the Tombow Mono now, and actually I'm going to clean up some of the edges because they're looking a little bit too sketchy. So clean up some of the edges, clean up some of the smudges. And I like to do this quite regularly through the drawing, whether it's coloured pencils, pastel pencils, whatever I'm using, because actually what I don't want to happen is for me to push on that smudge and push it even further into the paper. I want to kind of clean up as I go, because then it's just going to be easier at the end to lift it back up again. So just think about that, not leaving it right to the very end, I've normally got a little fluffy, oh there it is. I've got a cheap makeup brush and I'm just going to gently dust around the edge. Make sure you don't go over your whole drawing because you will lift up, or you will, you know, smudge your whole drawing. I'm going to think about the highlights now. I'm going to actually draw a little bit with my Tombow Mono and start to pull up some of this graphite. I'm constantly looking at my reference photo and working out where these little things are, all of these little details, all of the little highlights that really make up the details, the texture, the form of the apple. It's just important to get them all in the right place. There's quite a lot of highlighted areas there. So I'm using my eraser to draw. This is quite a lot darker than it is in real life, so I'm lifting that back up again, just using kind of almost like a fur technique. So I'm using little stripy lines, and what that does is it doesn't take away all of the graphite. So if I just rubbed over, it would lift it all up, which I don't want it to do. I just want to lift up half of it maybe, and then what I can do is go back in with my, not that one, that one's dirty, go back in with my tortillon and then just blend that out again. So overall that look is going to be lighter than it was before we started lifting up with the kneadable eraser. I'm just going to go back to comments now because I can't see both at the same time, which is really annoying. It's Facebook gone. All this clicking. How's everyone doing? Is this making sense? Let me know if it is. I hope it is. Oh, found it. I always seem to get graphite all over my hands and end up smudging. Yes, I do. Here. Is that where you're talking about? I really do. And I think that's why I've always got my erasers so handy, that I'll just tidy things up, because you don't want to smudge it in even more, and then it's going to be really difficult to lift it back up in at the end. How's everyone getting on? How are you finding it? Let me just refresh my page. Does that make sense with the blending? I know I'm going quite quickly, but for the purpose of this workshop, I just want to engross. Oh, that's lovely, Roger. Thank you very much. Right, okay. So I'm just looking at the screen and it looks quite dark on camera. It looks darker on the picture that you can see than it does in real life. So think about that as well, how it's kind of looking. I always tend to find if you're struggling to work out what's going wrong possibly, then take a photo with your phone, or even just look at it through a lens, and you can then start to work out what's going wrong. It seems to highlight it a little bit more and pick it up a little bit more. I don't have any blenders using cotton bud. That's fine, Carol. I mean, they are so brilliant, and that's what I used before I had a tortillon. The only issue with the cotton bud is that they have got quite a big surface area, so you could kind of twist them a little. Make sure you go in one direction. You can twist them a little bit, and then you can bring them to a bit more of a point, which is what I used to do, or even take some of the cotton bud, the kind of cotton fibres off of it. But yeah, that's my only issue with cotton buds, which is why I quite like these kind of pointed shapes. You can get so many different blenders. There's also, Karen Dash have got these colourless pencil blenders, and you could actually use that as well. Just going to blow on it. There's so many things on the market now. You've really just got to find what works for you and give it a go. But you don't really want to be buying too many different things. There's so many things on the market, aren't there? Right, going back, I've got a pencil in my mouth, haven't I always? I either end up with about 15 pencils in my left hand, or they're all, not all in my mouth, a few are in my mouth. So I'm going in with the 9B now. I'm being brave and starting. Comments are coming up on my screen. Yay. Don't you find the cotton buds pull off the colour? What, in coloured pencils or just in pencils, Roger? They kind of do, but then that's the point, I think. It's about lifting up, my hair's falling out, lifting up the graphite with the cotton bud. So you can see I've got a clean one here. If I blend, it will pick up quite a lot of graphite, but then I'll use that to put it in somewhere else. So that's what I love about it. You're moving around this graphite dust, and it will lighten it, definitely. It will lift it up, but that's why you kind of keep layering, keep adding, and then you get darker and darker. Does that make sense, Roger? Nicola, how do you sharpen the colourless pencil blenders? Just normally with a sharpening? Yes, this one's quite good actually with most things. So yeah, I mean, it sharpens pretty well. Yeah, it's weird because the Caran d'Ache used to have, well, they might still have it, but this is what came in the set. So the whole thing was like the lead, which you could actually use again. It's wax based. But now, I don't know if this is the upgraded version. They've cased it in wood, which I think is actually quite nice because these are quite sticky. So yeah, they work really well as well. Yeah. Brilliant. Yours is still looking grainy, Pam. Right, okay, if it's still looking grainy, then just keep going with the blending. So take your time. I am going really fast and rushing because I just want to get through all of the different techniques that I kind of use. But I'm very aware that we don't want to be, we've almost been on an hour already and I haven't even got onto the pastel pencils. So take your time, Pam, slow down and then start to really think about certain sections. So I'd probably work on the lighter section and I would really take my time. And I would use circles, I would use lines, and I would really concentrate because this is where the mindfulness comes in. This is where the fun part is. Not rushing it like I am. I think I'm just high on excitement. But taking your time, this is probably how slow I would normally work. So going section by section and using that pencil blender to push the graphite dust around. And this is why the techniques are quite different with coloured pencils, because you just couldn't do that with them, could you? You have to put the pencil where it's going to stay. You might pick up a tiny little bit when you glaze sometimes, but in general, you're laying the pencil down where you want it to be. With graphite, it feels a lot more fluid, like you've got so many options with it. So if I use the Tombow and really take up some of this graphite, you find that it leaves quite an unrealistic looking edge. And then you can go into this little dark bit, use some of that graphite and lay it down here. I just think that's like magic. And it just is brilliant. Is the blender that comes with the luminance set the same as your blender? This one came with the set, Jules. I think there were two. I think two came with it. Look at the state of it now. See how easy it snaps? That's probably why they upgraded it, because it snaps. Because it comes as a normal size pencil. You can't see my fingers. It comes as a normal size pencil, but when you're using it, it's snapped in half, whereas this isn't going to do that. This one you can buy separately, and you can get them at the coloured pencil shop. Emma, our lovely Emma Carriage, the coloured pencil shop, she sells these, and she also sells the other ones, I think. But I think I prefer this one if I was going to choose between them. And then you can use that with your graphite work. You could use it. Could you use it with your pastel work? Maybe not, because it's wax based and your pastels are kind of chalky. So yeah, I'm going to try it and see, and then I'll let you know. Don't go into your work and ruin it just because I've said, oh, they work with everything. They might not, so I think I'll have a little play with that when we move on to pastels. So keep going, Pam, keep blending. Mine's still grainy. Really like that diamond. I've drawn so many apples over the last couple of weeks. I'm seeing them in my dreams. But they are such a good project to practice this kind of thing, to practice the blending. And when I thought about this workshop, it's the first thing that came into my head, because I wanted something round. I wanted something that had, I didn't want to just draw a ball. I thought that would be a little bit boring for a workshop. See, look how much I've smudged that side. So get my electric eraser out, clean that up, and then we're going back to the 9B and we're going to darken it up. I love Caran d'Ache. Me too. Definitely. They're just beautiful pencils. And I'm also a big fan of the Faber-Castell. I think they are my first love, because it's the first real kind of professional set I bought, and I think you always have a bit of a soft spot for them. So I'm going in now with my 9B, and you can see how much darker this is, and I'm really not pressing very hard at all. Very, very light hand. And I'm actually starting to use little scribbly motions, because if I use circles here, it wouldn't put the texture down that I want. If you look at your reference photo, it's quite liney. And so if I did circles, you wouldn't get those lines in, which I quite like. So the 9B is the darkest. There's a little patch here that actually looks a little bit like a heart. I always think about what the shapes look like, instead of thinking about this thing as a whole, which can be a little bit intimidating. I think about, you know, what shape does that make and what does that look like, and just draw that, and then actually it starts to come together. Adding this in as well. There's a lot going on up here, and actually I probably would say that if you've got a very dark, I'm just drawn all over the stalk, see? Making mistakes, just use your Tombow, lift it back up again, completely gone. You probably wouldn't be able to do that as easily with coloured pencils, definitely not pastel pencils, which we will be moving on to in a sec. So darkening this up, putting that in, little line there. Yes, if you've got a dark area, that's what I was saying, wasn't it, before I made a mistake, then I would get that dark area in now, and then you can really work out how dark the rest of your piece needs to be, because until you've got the darkest part in, it's really difficult to know how dark the rest needs to go. I'm going to go back to my B and put in a line across here, and then I'm going to blend these sections. So I'm using back and forth now. The other thing I would say is I'm not just going up and down vertically, I'm actually curving. So I'm following the curve of the apple back and forth like this. I'm definitely not going horizontal, because you would get stop and start lines horizontally, which you don't want. So following the curve of the apple and smudging all of that. How's that looking? This side, to me, is looking way too dark, and this side starting to come to the colour that I want it to be. So now what I'm going to do, which is brilliant, another technique for getting shines, for lifting up lots of, you know, a bigger area, but you don't want to lift it all up. You certainly don't want to lift up all of that work that you've just done. So that's why the kneadable eraser is brilliant. So this patch here is a little bit darker than it needs to be, but I don't want to lift up too much. So I'm going to use my kneadable eraser and I'm just going to dab. And what that does is it just lifts a little bit up and it mutes, smudges, it blends, and it just lifts up the perfect amount. Obviously, if you want to lift up a little bit more, you go over the same area a couple of times. Just keep kind of, as you would with blue tack, just moving it around so you're not laying the graphite back down again. But this is just perfect for any shine. Yeah, mainly shines really, because it just lifts up. Can you see how it's lifted up it in a muted way? It's not lifted up in a harsh way like the Tombow would. You can lift up, so if I went in, say I went in with the Tombow, you can lift it, look at that. I mean, it practically cleans it up. Whereas this, it takes just a little layer off the top and lifts up the whole thing. Doesn't that look amazing? It's just magic. So I'm going to go back in with my B Just going to add that back in, and then I can just blend that area that I've just taken off. And I'm thinking about where the shadows are now, thinking about where the highlights are, where I need to leave free. And then adding a little bit more, using a bit of this graphite and putting it over here to darken that up just a little bit without adding the pencils. Because now actually it's all about getting a little bit more of a finished look. And the pencils always give you that sketchy look. They always look a bit grainy. So until you've blended them, you can see how that softens everything. I'm going to use some of that graphite to add to the shine, because actually that shine is not completely graphite free. I'm going to add a little bit of dashes in here, a little bit of, a little bit around the back. Just using circular motions just to add that in, tying it all in, darkening up the stalk a little bit. Some little lines in here. Definitely not going to be able to finish this apple today, but I just wanted to show you all of the different techniques, smooth that out. And then what you're doing is just building up on all of that, adding a little bit more in, taking a little bit away. How's that looking? It's starting to come together. The other thing I would say is, like with any drawing, you tend to find that you have this ugly duckling, they call it, ugly duckling stage. I'm going to put a little bit more into that shine, because that isn't as, not so much of a contrast. So if you do have that ugly duckling stage, which I think every drawing goes through, there's a time when you just think, this is never going to work. It's not coming together, it's looking really strange, it's all disjointed. Then step away, go and make a cup of tea, go and do something else, and then I can almost guarantee that when you come back and have a look at your drawing after, it looks way better than you remember. And you think, oh, actually, that doesn't look as bad as you were getting frustrated, you were possibly letting the emotions rise up and almost get the better of you. Just come back, take a breather, and then you'll guarantee that it will actually look really good. I'm going to put the 9B in at the bottom just to show the shadow, so it all starts to come together. And this is another great thing that you can do with, oh gosh, I'm trying to draw over my phone, which is a little bit difficult to get a lovely straight line, not straight, curved, but a clean line. So I'm going to add a little bit of this 9B in, and then the great thing that you can do with graphite, which is a bit more difficult with coloured pencils because you have to get the colours right, is that you can just smudge a lovely shadow. You can see I've indented the paper and my pencil's trying to go into it. So getting your tortillon and then blowing away any dust. Smudging that, and then we can smudge that shadow out and create a nice natural shadow. I love that sound as well. I just love that sound of it smudging. So using it to get a crisper line, and then you can see the shadow is pretty good if you need to darken it up a bit, because it will have taken some of that graphite away in the darker parts. So you might need to darken up a little bit in some sections. But there you go. How's it looking? Let me just check. If anyone's got any questions, do let me know about graphite. But you can see this is kind of, how long has that taken me? About 40 minutes. So this is the kind of finished-ish. There's still more to do on that. You know, I can see some mistakes or some bits that I'd like to finish. But look how much lighter that is. And then you're just carrying on, building up the kind of tone, the depth. But that's how you kind of start to do it, put them together. That's how you start to do it, by, my phone's gone on the wonk, by layering, lifting back up, layering again, blending in between, and eventually you'll end up with a much cleaner, crisper look. Does that make sense? How are you getting on? Are you having a go? I think what we might do is, I kind of talk about that a little bit in the worksheet, but I think we might move on to pastel pencils now, because we are going to be here all day. I'm going to turn the screen around again and just show you some of the things that I use. Right. Hello again. So, moving on to pastel pencils, because we could be here all day. I could talk about graphite forever. But pastel pencils are quite a different ball game. And if you've never used them before, then they can be quite tricky. But then I do think that having the basis of graphite is going to help you quite a lot with that, because you've started to build up the different techniques that you're then going to apply to pastels, which is why I thought they followed on really nicely. Now for pastels you'll need different paper, and I always use the Clairefontaine pastel mat. Now there are quite a few different ones out there on the market again, but I tend to always go back to that. I'm holding up the small little one because it's a small project, but you can get these papers in different sizes. This one's just the white pad, but actually I've got a few with lots of different colours. You've got lots of lovely yellows, dark greys, I think there's burgundies, there's greens, and so you can choose, as you can with lots of different paper, but you can choose your colours to really match the subject that you're drawing and to really make them pop out. And I think pastel mat was what introduced me to that, thinking about the colour of the paper that you use, because when I use smooth paper, I generally just use white, and I might put a little bit of a background in with watercolour, but generally it's just a white, an animal, the focal point on a white background, because if you're using coloured pencils, as you probably know, the backgrounds can take longer, if not just as long as the actual drawing. So I would always recommend pastel mat. Again, if you really like the sound of pastel pencils and you think that you might use them, I would invest in some better quality paper, because I don't think it's going to be long until you're going to find it quite frustrating and it starts to kind of work against you, which is not very nice. And then the pencils I use, said I love Faber-Castell, are the Pitt pastels. Now, I mainly bought the Faber-Castell ones because I'd seen other artists use them online and they were getting brilliant results from them. I love Faber-Castell, I'm quite loyal to them, because I just think if you find something that works, then obviously there's so many different ones to try from, and you know, there's lots that I would like to try, but just to keep it simple, then you can trust what works and what you know, and I just think they're beautifully made, they're reasonably priced, the colours are great, and I did see a review online where he reviewed all of the pastel pencils that I could think of, and these came up pretty much top, I think. So if you are going to treat yourself, and if you are going to use pastel pencils, you can't go wrong with the Faber-Castell Pitt pastels. I love these little tins. I don't actually think there are many more than 60. I don't know if that's the actual... They tend to be a little bit different to the coloured pencils and the watercolour pencils, which come in 120 colours. These ones, I only have 60, and that might be the full set, but because pastel pencils blend more than a coloured pencil would, I think it's probably all that you need. For the sharpening, which can be a little bit tricky, this one that I recommended, the M&R, I actually sharpened my pastel pencils with this one this morning, and mixed results, I'd say. Some of them brilliant, it sharpened them really well to a nice point. Let's see if I can find one. Look at that. I'm pretty amazed by that for a pastel pencil with this eraser. But as I went on, because they are dusty, even though I kept cleaning it, there was a bit of residue, and so they started to catch. And so that's why I keep going back to this one. It takes a little bit more time. It's a bit of an exercise. quite a good mindfulness exercise actually, to sit down and sharpen all your pencils, but it works brilliantly. The other thing I would say is you don't need them particularly sharp in the beginning because you're going to be doing base layers, and so I would have them a bit blunter and then use something like this sanding block. It's nice to be able to hold it, and you can see that top layer is a real mess, so I can pull that one off, throw it on the floor, throw it near my bin, and then you're back with a clean one again. So this is really good just to bring back that little bit of a point without eating your pencils and completely using them up. So let's move on to pastel pencils. Has anyone got any questions? Pastel pencils, brill. I buy 50 by 17, cut it to size. I think that's a brilliant solution. You're going to get it a lot cheaper that way. I do that with the Fabriano Artistico hot pressed watercolour paper that I use for my commission work, because I do think that the Daler Rowney that I use, that I've just used, there has been times when I've been drawing like a black, like an eye, putting so many layers in that it slightly damaged the surface of the paper. With Fabriano, I've never had that at all, but it does take a bit of getting used to. I don't think it's easy to do. So yeah, buying bigger sheets and cutting it down to size is a great solution to, you know, it's really economical then. You get it for pretty good. Where do you buy yours, Roger? I tend to get mine from Jackson's. Yeah, mainly Jackson's for my paper. I know the coloured pencil shop, I think I looked the other day, I think they do pastel mat as well. And you can get paper and you can get board. And the paper is, I think it's slightly different to the board. I don't generally buy board because I like the flexibility of it. And this paper is so thick anyway. It comes with like a protective sheet to stop it smudging over the top. But because I think it's sprayed on, the texture, you do get differing textures sometimes. And I think board, I've heard that board you get a little bit more of the difference, the variation in textures than you do with the paper. So I think that might be it. Let's move on. Let's, I'm aware of getting too close and frightening you all. Right, so I'm going to swap my graphite apples for my pastel apple. And where's my clean? Ah, there you go. Right, here you go. Oh, I've got loads of, just ripped this out of this thing and I've ended up with loads. Lifting this off. I'm going to take that off because then I can use it. So I've not drawn that as dark, but quite dark. Just take a sip of water. Right. I'm just making sure I'm reading all of the comments. Let me get rid of my graphite stuff. I need a bigger desk. And I'm just going to show you how I would go about drawing kind of this apple. It's quite nice to go between the two. I think they're going to be, it's quite a good transition. So I'm going to start with, the other thing with the Pitt pastels is that they don't have colours on them. They just have numbers. I'm sure I could work out what they were, but I think it's a little bit more difficult. So, pastel mat, look at the point on that. Isn't that amazing? This is 170. So I'm going in with the lightest green that I can see, and I'm going to mix it up with this yellowy green as well. It's like the light yellow glaze. I don't know if it is. And I'm actually going to start on the left-hand side, and I'm just laying down. I'm going to lift up some of this a little bit. It's a bit dark. Again, this kneadable eraser, look how versatile it is. Do not rub with this. I would just pat because you don't want to damage the surface of the pastel mat. It's a little bit of a different feeling. Can you hear how the pastel, can you hear that? You find that you're going to be blowing all of the time with this. So I'm starting with the kind of mid-green that goes around the top. I'm constantly looking at my reference photo here. Some people have asked me how to get a crisp line, and I think it's all about the sharpness of the pencil, really. So going over, what I would do is go over the same area just a couple of times. It kind of reminds me of when you're cutting in, when you're painting a room. It's because I've done a little bit of that recently. You have to go over it a couple of times and kind of pull the paint or pastel along, and eventually you'll get a nice crisp line. eBay usually, but you need to shop around. Yeah, that's true. I always forget about eBay. So now I'm going to go in a little bit lighter. So yeah, eBay. I might have a little look on eBay and see what other things I can get. So I'm using a very light hand, and I'm kind of using a scribbly technique. I'm using kind of circles as well, like the normal circles that you would use with coloured pencils or something like that. I'm just adding this to where I can see the green. I'm using a really light hand. I'm going to put that diamond in because that's in the green. The great thing about pastel pencils that you don't get from coloured pencils, and one of the great things, they're a bit quicker, I think. I think they are overall quicker than coloured pencils, but you can do light over dark, which is one of those things with coloured pencils, isn't it? It's just not easy to do, and we have to find ways around it. Things are getting better, as in that, you know, there's a lot of different things that we can now buy. You know, we've got that liquid white, haven't used it yet, but the liquid white that's on the market, that's basically a liquid white pencil, which shows up very opaquely on top of any dark areas, and then you can draw whiskers in and things. I mean, that's a game changer, isn't it? But we just can't get hold of it at the moment. I don't think COVID has helped with that. So I'm just putting a base layer down, a little bit like the graphite. This is very, very different to how I would use coloured pencils. And it's a lot quicker. So I'm going to be putting the green in where I think it needs to go, the mid-tone green. So I'm not going in with the darkest green. I think I'm going to leave that until a little bit later on, but I'm just adding and thinking about where the green will go. So what I'm doing is almost colour blocking. I'm starting to work out where the colours go and putting them in. Now there's quite a lot of grey, so now we're having to start to think about colours, and it gets a little bit more complicated than just the graphite. So I'm going to map in where the grey parts go, because there's quite a lot of grey in the shine. There's quite a lot of grey on this side. And how I use pastel pencils is actually, instead of blending now, instead of going in with like a tortillon and blending or anything else, I will use the next pencils that I'm using to pull those colours together. So I will pull a bit of the green in, you get it on the end of your pencil, but I'll blend over the top and I'll layer up in that way and get rid of the graininess by layering, a little bit like I do with colour pencils. But it's just a lot quicker and they blend a lot more easily. So you don't have to worry so much about the graininess that you do with coloured pencils, because actually you know that you're going to be putting pencil over the top. I'm just going to add a little bit of this greeny yellow in, which is really bright, but we're going to tone it down with the green on top. But I just want this base layer of green in, yellow in. So I'm just adding this. And you'll start to find that the more layers you put down, the more they start to all merge and blend together. We don't want that to be just grey. So what layer are we on now? 2. And then we'll see how they'll start to blend. Look how much quicker this is than coloured pencils. We haven't gone into coloured pencils with any detail yet, but I think that's why they They're just so much slower, aren't they? Blending takes so much longer. So getting that yellow in. I'm leaving kind of the highlights free at the moment. That pencil's still pretty dark underneath. Just starting to block in where all of the colours go. Let's think about the greens. We're a little bit more limited to greens in these pastels because there's only 60. So I'm going to use a light hand and start to blend the next layer in. And you'll gradually see that it will start to soften, the graininess will go, and it all starts coming together. This is a really ugly stage, isn't it? It's looking really sketchy, really horrible. And this is the stage when you probably think, I just can't do it. It's not working. It's not going very well. I can't do it. I'm just going to leave it. But keep going. And it will all start coming together. I'm putting some green over the top of the yellow to tone that down, blend it all in, and you'll start to see it will come together. So again, this is about taking the pressure off and enjoying it and thinking about why we're doing it, enjoying the process as well as the end result. Because actually, you know, sometimes making mistakes is how we learn the best, because it kind of ingrains it into our memory a little bit more. We possibly want to avoid making a mistake again like that one if it was a bit costly, or maybe you felt like a lot of time was given up to that piece and then it didn't turn out the way that you wanted it to. But you can guarantee that you will learn so much from that. And don't be too hard on yourself and give up or put pencils down and think you can't do it, because I think everyone goes through those same stages. Hello, Gooder. Can I download the line art here? Yeah, I've actually put it at the top of the page now, Gooder, in the announcements section. So there's the little worksheet there. I think I pinned it to the top, so it should be there. And there's like a little PDF that you can download, and it's all on that. So look how ugly that looks. It looks really horrible at this stage. And you could definitely think, oh my goodness, it's never going to work. Don't panic. It always looks like this. And I think the more you do it, the more you just think, I'm going through that stage. I'm just going through the ugly duckling stage. I know from experience that it doesn't last long. So I just want to show you how you can lay light over dark. I'm going to use the kind of, I think this is a warm grey actually. And I'm going to use this to blend over the top as well. Look how that smooths everything. So by adding all of these layers in, this is how you get, you're pushing all of that dust around. Look how much smoother that is. I mean, it's a bit of a muddy colour, but don't worry, you're going to be adding colours on top. So adding a little bit more yellow, using a light hand. Not quite sure how much I'm going to get done today. I think this one, which obviously I'm building up through the layers, probably took about 2 hours maybe, from start to finish. That's with all the kind of, maybe 2.5 with the sharpening and all of that kind of thing. But look how it's all starting to smooth out. Adding a little bit of the light green again. Oh, would help if I was looking at what I was doing. So adding some of that green in to darken up. It takes so many layers, this pastel mat. It's brilliant for that. So you can see how that's starting to smooth this part. Add that diamond in. The great thing, like I said, you can put light over dark. You don't have to worry about leaving it all free. going to add a little bit of the coal grey to the shadow. They're standing out a little bit too much at the moment, bringing some of those edges in, toning it all down. At the moment they're standing out like a sore thumb, aren't they? Is anyone having a go with the pastel pencils? Are you having a go? Let me know. Bringing the yellow back in. And that has more of a kind of yellow on top of the grey. Look how many layers. And again, this is your kind of interpretation of the colours as well. Some people will see them a little bit differently to others. Some people will want to go a lot lighter. You see some beautiful, delicate drawings. I myself aren't one of these people. I tend to be quite heavy-handed, and I almost like to slap colours on. I think that's why I'm kind of drawn to painting in a way. I like to get all of those different colours in. So I want to add a little bit of lightness to, where's my white? So I just want to show you how you can add white over the top. It doesn't show up like it would like a gel pen or anything like that, but it just shows up enough that it just pulls up those colours again. I just want to bring it together a little bit because it's just looking so sketchy and horrible at this stage. I want to get past this stage for everybody. So I think I'm going to move on to this side and show you how building up through the darker colours starts to tie it all in together. There is a little bit of green in that grey. We're still kind of colour blocking at this stage because I haven't got the dark colours in yet. I would be taking my time a lot more than I am right now. It's just trying to make the edge a little bit cleaner. And up here. You'll see that you'll start to wear down your pencil like a sweet spot, and then you've got that lovely part that you can put detail in with. So don't worry about that because it's always quite handy to have it wearing down. Right, I'm going to move up through the greens now and move into a slightly darker green, and I'm actually going to be using little stripy, using a light hand still, just starting to map in where that shadow is, and you can see that starts to smooth the layers underneath. So I'm starting to think about so if you've got a sharp point, you can see how that shows up a lot more. I'm starting to think about the detail a little bit. Adding that in. A little bit of a dark bit under here. That little heart shape. Adding that in. And then there's like a semicircle, well, quite a long kind of oval shape here. So that needs to go in. A little bit of grey over the top, just to smudge everything. And then we can add more green over the top. You can see how it all starts to blend. I think we need to go a little bit darker on the green. And start to add some of the darker green to that shadow. Now this is like I think this is like the olive green yellowish in the coloured pencils or watercolour pencils. It's a really nice natural green. So adding a little bit more of this in. So you can see how it's starting to take a bit of shape now. There's darker parts, there's lighter parts, there's lines, there's circles. It's not all just one colour. It's not about just adding it all in one section. It's about making it a bit more random. Adding that in as well, coming around here, adding quite a lot more shadow here. And then we can tone it down with the greens. So just adding a few different greens. And then I tend to smudge, look, I'm holding them all in one hand. I tend to smudge with the lighter colours again, like I would with coloured pencil. I tend to blend between, so what that does is it softens the pencil strokes, so they're not so harsh. And it tends to blend all of the colours together. So I tend to do that with coloured pencils as well. I'll use kind of the fur texture technique, and then I'll soften all of the pencil strokes with a lighter colour, but a colour that I've already used, usually. So starting to pull all of this together, blending these lines are quite harsh at the moment. So again, going back in with the mid-tone and starting to add some more of that in. Can you see how it's starting to soften now? We're a couple of layers in, still quite a few to go. Just going to start to add in the top because it looks a bit strange at the moment. So following that line. Obviously take your time a lot more than I'm doing. This is really, really quick. And I probably wouldn't recommend it unless you just want to do a quick drawing and just have fun and have a go and not worry too much about how it works out, but just start to get a feel to how the pencils lay down and all of the lovely colours. You know, have a little trial run, have a play. And then I'm actually going to use the warm grey to blend up here, smudge some of that green around. I was going to say, I'm quite surprised I've not scribbled all over the top of the paper yet. It's not smudged badly, but I think if I do say that, it will start to do it. So adding a little bit of the dark into the top now. There's a little line there. And once you start bringing all these details in, it starts to make a little bit more sense. It starts to look like an apple and not just like a green ball. So adding that top line in, there's quite a shadow there. That goes quite dark. Definitely need to clean up those lines a little bit. And then adding something in there and then coming down again. So with pastel pencils, because you can go light over dark, with this section here, because it's a lot more yellow in the photo that I'm copying, I can then go over the top with the yellow and start to blend with that. I just think that's brilliant. That probably wouldn't show up that much in colour pencils. But it starts to, it's just like another trick. You know, if I wanted to put another line in there, I could do it. I could add it in and it would lighten up that whole area. I can do that down here as well, and it just lightens up. It doesn't show up like, I think I thought it would show up a little bit more than it does, but what it does is it overall lightens up that area and softens. So I can go up into here and I can add a bit more grey and just soften that little patch there. Can you see how that's worked? It's just lifted the colour a little bit and softened everything. And then I can go in with my white in here. And that's just lighten that whole area. And then I can add a little bit of green to it if I want to. A little bit of detail. Please go slower than me. I'm just really just aware of the time. So adding a little bit here, and then I can go in back in with my lighter colours and lighten it all up again, smudge it all away. Smudge the greens in, smudge that green in so it's not so harsh. I think I might put the stalk in just because it looks a bit weird at the moment, and then it will make a bit more sense. So I'm just going to add some lines for the stalk. I'm going with a lighter colour down the side. I'm going to blend it with my light grey so it's not so sketchy. Constantly blowing. Don't use this for your pastel work because you will just sweep your drawing away, and that can be a little bit heartbreaking. So using the darker colours just to darken up that stalk. See, this kind of thing you need sharper pencils for, because you want to get those little details in. Where's my yellowy, my ochre? I'm holding them all in my hand. Can you hear that? I've lost a pencil. Do you ever do that? You had one in your hand 2 seconds ago, here it is, and you lose it and it just disappears completely. And you think, where could it possibly go? It's not on the floor, you don't hear it fall. Very weird. Darkening up a little bit around here, and then we're going to soften. So you can see it's starting to come together. Look how you can soften the pencil strokes. You add a dark bit in, and then you soften. You smudge, and then you use that pigment to push it into the next bit. Constantly blowing. Does that make sense? And then adding your grey in. That's a bit greyer than it is white. Soften all of that. Bring that all together. See, I'm fiddling now. Even though I know I'm not going to finish this drawing, it's not going to be complete. I'm fiddling around because I'm constantly seeing things in the reference photo. Pulling that up a little bit. Adding some detail in there. So can you see how it's starting to come together? It still looks a little bit grainy. That whole section needs to be quite a lot darker than it is. And actually, I think I prefer where this is going, colour-wise, than I do my kind of finished one. So it just goes to show how much you learn between two drawings. I'm going to have to take a sip of water. Can you see how this is a better colour? Well, I didn't say better, I'm a bit reluctant to say better, but I think just by working on this one, which I actually did a couple of weeks ago, I've observed so much more about what's going on. I wish I could put them together, can I? There you go. So you can see it's not all about, I suppose it's just practice, isn't it? It just goes to show that if you do something a couple of times, the more you practice, the more you actually see. So I'm actually quite pleased with where this part is going. I think that will look more like the reference photo than this finished one. So give it a go, see what you think. I've probably got another hour on this, maybe an hour and a half. It's just about taking your time with it and not rushing it too much, because it's very easy to do that, and it's very easy to see that horrible stage at the beginning, which, let's face it, it's really horrible. It really doesn't look good at all. And you start to think, I just can't do it. It's not coming together. But just push through, just keep going, and I can guarantee that it will work. Gonna try this afterwards tonight already. That's so much. Normally give up. Yep. I've been there, Nicola, definitely. I know exactly how you feel, because that's how I felt. I've been wanting to try pastel pages for yonks, and then when I tried them, I thought, oh my God, they're really different. I'm never going to get this. It's just too different to coloured pencils, and I was in my comfort zone with coloured pencils, and I quite like pushing myself out of my comfort zone sometimes, but I thought I'd taken it a bit of a step too far. So keep going, Nicola, keep persevering, and it will pay off. It will happen. And just think about all of the techniques that you use with your coloured pencil work and what we've learnt with our graphite, because graphite, and I mean, that is, I just think that was a brilliant transition. They work so closely together. They are similar in the blending, the kind of smudging the pigment around, that kind of thing. So they, yeah, practice a little bit with your graphite maybe first and just see how you get on with that. I'm going to turn the phone around again. Does anybody, I'm going to stand back a bit, does anybody have any questions about what we've done today? Does it make sense? I hope you picked up some techniques. I think I took the pressure off myself today to completely finish them, because actually I think it's just too much to do in a workshop, and it is a bit of a different technique drawing over a phone. Really helpful seeing the same subject drawing differently. That's kind of what I thought, Nicola. I hope people aren't sick to death of apples, and funnily enough I've drawn 5 or 6 of them now. I'm probably going to draw 9, 10 by the end, and I'm still learning every time, and I do think it's quite a good subject to draw to practice. It might not be something that you would want to have on your wall necessarily. You might do an apple, but it's just a really good practice project to do for all of those different techniques. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So I just want to talk a little bit now, if you've got time. I need to get a blender before I continue. Oh, I'm so glad, Carol. I just want to talk a little bit about the membership that I briefly touched on earlier, the Art and Mindset membership that I founded about 5 months ago now, and the doors are now open today. So if you really enjoyed today and you got some helpful tips, obviously this is just a snippet of what I can show you and what we can work on together in the membership. The membership was really founded because I wanted to think about what I needed about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I started on my art journey. Thinking about why I do art, what are the reasons behind it, and what would have been great back then. And I wanted this membership to be quite different to all of the other things that are out there. There's so many different art tutorial subscriptions on the market. There's so many YouTube videos out there that it can actually be quite overwhelming and can put you off, because you don't know where to start, you don't know how to begin. You want to be able to ask questions as you go, but you can't, because these videos could be 5 years old, they could be time-lapse, so you're missing crucial parts. And I just think I wanted a place where everything could be easy to access. So in a world where everything's out there on YouTube and it's all free, it can be a little bit too much. And I wanted more to be able to streamline it and to give real time help to improve your artwork. And I started off thinking about painting as well, but I think my first love is pencils, and that is these 4 main types of pencils, starting right back at the beginning with graphite, moving on to coloured pencils, and then gradually bringing in watercolour pencils and pastel pencils. Not as comfortable with them, but love them just as much, and I think they tie all in together. So the main tutorials are going to be on pencil work, all of the different kinds of pencils. I'm also going to be exploring backgrounds a little bit. I love watercolour and the splodges. I like to use watercolour pencils as a background. One of my lovely members has introduced me to Brusho, which I haven't actually tried yet, but it's on order, it's coming soon. I'm very excited. So I really want to practice with that, because I think you know, I've been thinking a lot over the last few weeks about the membership and how it's evolving and how it started and where the next direction. And I've talked to my members about this the other day, and actually it's more about building a community, building a support system for each other, because thinking about why we do art, what we enjoy from our art, how important it is that we do art, but the positivity that it gives us, not the frustration, because I think we can get really easily swept away with not getting something to look as good as someone else's possibly, or frustrated that it doesn't look exactly like the reference photo, and then feeling like you're not good enough. I want to be able to pick someone up when they're feeling like that, because I know how that feels. I've been there myself, and I didn't have anybody to pick me up. And so I want to build a community and a support system of people that are like-minded, that get how exciting it is when brush show's coming through the door very soon, or a pencil delivery or paper delivery, or how frustrating it is when something's gone wrong. Sharing that and lifting each other back up again. So there's the tutorials there, which are half of the membership. They're important, but they're not the be all and end all, and I don't want people to be too consumed with how many they're doing, or that they're not doing enough, or that they're not putting the time aside for a 3-hour tutorial and they've only got 10 minutes. So that's part of it, and those tutorials are there to pick skills up and tips and techniques as well. But actually the mindset and why we make art, and creativity being at our core and needing to express that, and harnessing how that makes us feel, and then working with that, how can we then carry that on going forward into the rest of our lives, and how can we harness those feel-good feelings that art gives us, and then feel like that more and more throughout the day. Why can't we feel better most of the time? I'm a trained hypnotherapist, and so we're going to be doing a lot more mindset work. We're going to be doing hypnotherapy sessions together, more mindfulness, more mindset work, more trying to get rid of those mind monkeys, those horrible, comparison is a thief of joy. We want more joy, we want more happiness, and we want more taking away the pressure of art and why we do it. So that's what this membership is all about. It's about having the support, having a wonderful group of like-minded people that come together to support each other and to build on that mindset work. I want to get other professionals in to give interviews that, on fields that I can't cover myself. I want to do more Zoom calls together where we're drawing together, a little bit like today, a lot more of this kind of interactive workshop. So it's not going to be lots of tutorials. I've got a lovely library building up now that are there, and you can do as many times as you like, but I want it to be that we do a lot more interactive work where we can chat, you can ask me questions as we go, we can make mistakes together and work out how to solve them, or to incorporate them into the drawing, which I've done a lot of the times before. But it's about taking the pressure off and putting the joy back into art, why we do it, valuing yourself, filling your cup so that you've got more then to give to others. If you're not filling your cup and you're not putting yourself at the top of the list, and that's not selfish, that is actually survival. If you're in an air crash, they always say put your oxygen mask on first, because if you've passed out, you can't then help anybody else. It's a similar kind of thing. If I'm filling my cup and I'm feeling more fulfilled by really working on my mindset stuff, which is what I'm going to be helping with in the membership, by making time to do my art, which I know I need to do, by connecting with people, because I am an introvert. You might not think that doing these lives and things, but I am definitely an introvert. I find these things quite nerve-wracking. They're getting easier as I do them, and actually I'm finding them much more enjoyable because I've taken the pressure off myself, and actually I'm talking about a subject that I absolutely love and I could talk for hours about. But I know that I could quite easily hide away at my desk and not really interact with a soul. I've got 2 children, so life is pretty busy, generally, family life, but throughout the daytime hours when they are at school, I know that I could quite easily, in my comfort zone, shut myself away like a hermit and actually not really interact with anyone, any adults, all day. Now that feels kind of okay, but I know deep down in my core that if I don't connect with people, and if I don't pull myself out and and talk to people and make an effort, that it's gonna be detrimental eventually, and I'm gonna get into a bit of a rut. And so that's why this membership is so important to me, because I think it's about having that connection that us humans really, really need. I don't feel like I fit in many places, but with my artwork and with the beautiful members that I've got in my group, I feel like I found my tribe. I don't want to get upset. I feel like I found my tribe, and that's what I want for everybody. I want everybody to feel that they're not alone, and that you've got somebody that you can talk to, that you can ask questions, and then we share this beautiful love of art that fills me up so much, and I want everybody to feel the same about it. So that's what it's all about. Thank you for listening to me ramble on, but it's something that I'm very passionate about. It's growing and evolving, and if you join now, then you've definitely got more of a chance to put your input in. Lovely Emma Carriage, who is a member, has said that all members will have 10% off the coloured pencil shop, so that's another reason to join. We're going to be doing lots of interactive stuff very, very soon. What else did I need to tell you? I think that was it. So again, please do comment, please do like or love the video. I've seen there's about 35 or so watching, and there's only kind of 10 likes or loves, so please make sure that you do, because that will then push this video out to more people in the group, because I know even within the group people just aren't seeing them. I will pin this to the top, and then later on I will send you a little worksheet. So like or love, please comment, and please do, if you don't want to put it in the group, which I get, send it to me, and that will be counted in the draw. So if you do those 3 things, you have to do those 3 things. If you do them all, you'll be entered 3 times into the competition, where you can win a month's free membership to my membership, or you can win those little accessories that I've got going on. So please do enter. Thank you, Sam. Oh, my pleasure. I'm just going to answer some comments now. Nicola, one of my lovely members. Best artistic decision made about joining the membership. Oh, that's so lovely. Learned so much in a lovely community. Be able to ask questions. Thank you so much, Nicola. That really means a lot to me. Thank you, Sue. Great class. Thank you so much, Eileen. Great to see you, Mark. Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much. How much is the membership, please? The membership, if you join for a month, is £24.99 a month. So about the cost of a takeaway, which I'd like to say is gone in half an hour. This is an awful lot of content for that £24.99, and I have actually just set up a payment structure where if you join for 6 months, then the price goes down, and if you join for a year, then the price goes down even more, so it ends up being around £15 a month. Obviously it might not be something you want to do straight away, so by all means join for a month, see if you like it, and then you can always change the pricing structure if you're really enjoying it. But I really hope that when people do join, they don't want to leave, because it's such a support system there that I think is just crucial to our well-being right now. And don't forget, this stage, this last year, this last 14 months has been one of the trickiest. Whatever your personality, it tends to have exacerbated all of those symptoms that you would normally have. So if you're naturally quite anxious like me, that anxiety stepped up a gear, really, because everyone's at a low level anxiety. And even though we're starting to come out, there's going to be some transition coming out as well. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty. How is this new world going to look? Do we still have, just because the government's saying it's safe, does that actually mean it's safe? There's a lot of questions and a lot of things that people are thinking. So I think being kind to ourselves has never been more apparent, that how important it is, and valuing yourself and making sure that you take some time for you. That's what this membership is all about. Really enjoyed this morning, bit of sunshine on an otherwise grey day. You're going to make me cry. My absolute pleasure. I actually love this, although it sounds scary and it's something that I never thought I would do. It's it's building that connection that I know that now I need more than ever, and I don't ever want to lose this again, because I know myself, I can quite easily creep into a little hermit hole or sit at my desk and not speak to anybody. And that sounds easy, sounds like the easy option, but I know it's not good for me in the long run, and it's about kind of recognising that and doing something about it, really. I'm so glad you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching and giving up some of your precious time to spend a little bit of the morning, a lot of the morning with me. If you have any other questions, if you have any questions about the membership, then please don't hesitate to DM me. I will put the link at the top of this workshop for the information page, where there's a lot more information about the membership. So I will do that now. And actually, I've also uploaded the other day a free tutorial of the coloured pencil apple that we're going to be doing tomorrow, so you can kind of see what the tutorials are like if you're sitting on the fence. So that is actually on the sales page too. So I hope you all have a lovely day. I look forward to seeing some of your apples if you would like to post them. And I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow, when we are going to be talking about watercolour pencils. Again, a little bit of a different technique, and beloved coloured pencils, which are just amazing. So I really look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you're watching on the replay, please do say hello, and I will put the link for the membership in the description box when we finish, and look out in your emails for the worksheet that's coming out in a bit. So I really hope you have a good rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Lots of love. Bye for now.